Listen, everybody wants to be the best, but very few people are willing to do what the best do. Being the best isn't about luck, talent, or even opportunities. It's about applying certain rules with relentless consistency. So if you want to be the best at anything, here are 10 rules you cannot afford to ignore. Rule V1Z: decide to dominate. Most people wish for greatness, but wishing doesn't move mountains. You've got to decide with absolute clarity that you will dominate your lane. Once you decide, distractions disappear, decide to dominate. That's where everything begins. Most people live their lives stuck in neutral, coasting through opportunities, waiting for something outside of them to change before they move. But domination doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. The difference between the average and the extraordinary isn't talent. It isn't resources. It isn't even timing. It's a decision that says, I refuse to settle for average. I refuse to let comfort keep me small. I refuse to accept anything less than excellence in my lane. When you make a real decision, something shifts inside you. Decisions cut off alternatives. The word decide literally comes from the same root as homicide, suicide, genocide. It means to cut off. To decide is to cut off every other option. Until you cut off the option of mediocrity, you'll always drift back to it. Until you cut off the option of quitting, you'll quit when it gets hard. Until you cut off the option of distraction, you'll always find an excuse to procrastinate. But when you decide to dominate, you're telling yourself and the world, there is no other option but to rise. There is no other path but mastery. There is no other outcome but victory. And now here's the reality: deciding to dominate is uncomfortable. The moment you decide, resistance will test you. Life will ask, do you really want this? Do you really mean it? Obstacles will appear. People close to you might laugh. Friends may think you've lost your mind. And your own thoughts will whisper, maybe this is too much. Maybe you should just settle. But that's the exact point where the decision is tested. If you hold on, if you stay firm, that decision hardens into conviction. Conviction becomes consistency, and consistency eventually becomes greatness. Decide to dominate your thoughts. Everything begins in the mind. If you let small thinking take root, you'll live a small life. If you rehearse limitations, you'll believe limitations. The best at anything monitor their inner dialogue. They reject doubt and replace it with vision. They reject fear and replace it with faith. They don't let their minds wander aimlessly. They discipline their imagination until it serves their future instead of sabotaging it. Decide to dominate your actions. It's not enough to dream or talk. The decision has to translate into execution. People who dominate don't wait for perfect conditions. They move with imperfect steps and refine as they go. They do what needs to be done even when they don't feel like it, because feelings follow actions, not the other way around. The decision to dominate creates a standard. This is who I am. This is what I do. And this is what I don't do. That standard drives action automatically. Decide to dominate your environment. If you live in a space filled with clutter, negativity, or constant distractions, it's almost impossible to create excellence. The best curate their environment intentionally. They surround themselves with people who challenge them, not people who coddle them. They place themselves in rooms that stretch their vision, not rooms that shrink it. They invest in mentorship, training, and wisdom because they understand that the environment determines the energy and the energy determines the outcome. Decide to dominate time. Time is the one resource every person gets equally, but how you use it separates you from the rest. Those who dominate don't waste their hours on gossip, scrolling endlessly, or engaging in drama. They measure time like money and spend it on the things that multiply. They're not just busy, they're productive. They know the difference between movement and progress. They don't just fill calendars, they build futures. Decide to dominate fear. Fear will never leave completely. Every new level brings new fears: fear of failure, fear of success, fear of rejection, fear of loss. But domination means you feel the fear and move anyway. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to act in spite of it. When you move forward in the face of fear, that decision rewires your brain to see possibilities instead of problems. Each time you do it, fear shrinks and faith grows stronger. Decide to dominate consistency. A single burst of effort won't make you the best. A season of hustle won't crown you with mastery. What separates the great from the average is the willingness to show up again and again, even when nobody's watching. Even when progress feels invisible, even when the reward seems far away. Consistency compounds. Each action builds on the last until eventually you cross a threshold where effort turns into excellence and excellence turns into domination. Decide to dominate your excuses. Everyone has reasons why they could fail. Everyone has circumstances that could hold them back. But those who dominate refuse to let excuses become their story. They don't deny obstacles exist. They just refuse to bow to them. They use their story instead of a cage. They turn every disadvantage into an advantage. They say, this is not happening to me, it's happening for me. This is shaping me into someone stronger, sharper, more resilient. When you make the decision to dominate, you don't need to announce it. People will see it in your eyes, hear it in your words, and feel it in your presence. Because decision creates energy, decision creates clarity, decision creates power. Most people dabble, a few commit, but the rare ones decide, and those are the ones who rise to the top, who master their craft, who leave a legacy. Pay the price others won't. That's the real cost of greatness, and most people aren't willing to write that check. Everybody says they want to be the best. They love the idea of recognition, of success, of influence. But the moment the bill for excellence shows up, they hesitate. They want the trophy without the training. They want the income without the investment. They want the spotlight without the sacrifice. But here's the truth. The universe doesn't give discounts on greatness. You either pay in full or you stay average. The price comes in different forms. Sometimes it's the price of time. While others are binging entertainment, you're mastering your craft. While others are sleeping, you're studying. While others are drifting, you're disciplined. You cannot dominate when your calendar is filled with comfort. Time is the most valuable currency, and the best use it with precision. They cut out the trivial. They trade temporary pleasures for permanent progress. They understand that lost time is the one bill you can never repay. Sometimes the price is discomfort. Excellence lives on the other side of pain, and most people run the other way. They avoid rejection. They avoid hard work. They avoid the stretch that feels unbearable. But discomfort is the tuition you pay for growth. Muscles grow under resistance, not relaxation. Skills sharpen under pressure, not ease. Wisdom develops through failure, not safety. Every great achiever has stories of nights where they wanted to quit, days where nothing worked, moments where doubt screamed louder than vision. But they paid anyway. They endured, and that endurance built a foundation the average can't understand. Sometimes the price is solitude. The road to mastery is often walked alone. Friends who don't share the vision may not understand why you work so hard. Family members may tell you to slow down, to be realistic. You may spend seasons without applause, without support, without validation. And that's the real test. Can you stay committed when nobody's clapping? Can you keep showing up when nobody sees it? The best don't wait for cheerleaders. They learn to encourage themselves, to fuel their own fire, to keep moving when the stands are empty. The price can also be financial. Investing in mentors, education, resources, and opportunities may feel costly in the short term, but nothing is more expensive than ignorance. The average spend on entertainment, the best invest in elevation. They know the difference between consumption and contribution. Every dollar spent on growth multiplies, while every dollar spent on distraction evaporates. You can either buy toys that depreciate or tools that appreciate. One drains your future, the other builds it. The price is also repetition. Doing something once is easy. Doing it until it becomes second nature is rare. The best don't practice until they get it right. They practice until they can't get it wrong. That means doing the same drills, the same moves, the same actions over and over until mastery is inevitable. It may look boring to outsiders, but mastery is built in monotony. Behind every dazzling performance is 1,000 invisible repetitions. Behind every flawless move is 1,000 unseen mistakes corrected. There's also the price of resilience. Every failure is a bill. Every rejection is a bill. Every setback is a bill. And if you want greatness, you pay each one with persistence. The average let failure bankrupt them. They treat rejection like a final verdict instead of tuition. But the best see each setback as a receipt that proves they're still in the game. They pay with lessons. They pay with patience. They pay with persistence until the breakthrough comes. Another price is focus. In a world full of distractions, focus is the rarest form of currency. Most people scatter their energy across dozens of directions, wondering why they never get results. But the best channel all their energy into one lane until they dominate it. They understand that divided focus creates divided results. Every yes has to be protected by 1,000 no's. Focus requires sacrifice, turning down opportunities, ignoring noise, saying no to people you love in order to stay true to the vision burning inside you. The greatest price is consistency. Anyone can sprint for a week. Anyone can be motivated for a month. But the price of being the best requires showing up year after year, rain or shine, applause or silence. Consistency costs more than talent because it demands your presence even when your passion feels low. It's paying when the mood is gone. It's paying when results aren't visible. It's paying when every part of you wants to stop, but you choose to continue anyway. Paying the price others won't doesn't make you unlucky. It makes you unstoppable. It separates the few from the many, the masters from the amateurs, the great from the average. The world sees the highlight reel, but the price was the hidden grind. And the price you're willing to pay will always determine the height you're allowed to climb. Focus on mastery, not applause. Too many people are chasing recognition instead of results. They're more concerned with how they look than with what they're becoming. They're addicted to validation, to claps, to likes, to temporary approval. But applause is fleeting. Mastery is forever. The applause of today can vanish tomorrow, but the skill you develop will remain. The mistake people make is confusing popularity with power, forgetting that recognition without competence is fragile. When you chase applause, you hand control of your worth to others. When you chase mastery, you own it. Mastery is about becoming so good that your results speak for themselves. It's not about convincing anyone. It's about producing something undeniable. The best don't wake up wondering if people notice them. They wake up wondering if they improve from yesterday. They don't measure their progress by compliments, but by competence. They don't ask, how many people saw me? They ask, How much closer am I to excellence? And here's the secret: when you focus on mastery long enough, applause eventually chases you down. But if you chase applause, mastery runs from you. Focusing on mastery requires patience. In the beginning, you will not be noticed. You will work while others sleep. You will study while others laugh. You will practice while others play, and no one will clap for it. That's why most people quit. They mistake silence for insignificance. But silence is the classroom of mastery. It's in that silence where you sharpen skills, refine techniques, and build the foundation that others can't see. By the time applause arrives, you'll be so far ahead it won't even matter. Mastery requires humility. You cannot improve if you believe you already know it all. The best are always learning. They study those ahead of them. They take notes from those around them. They remain students long after they become teachers. Pride makes you crave applause. Humility makes you crave growth. And growth is the fuel of mastery. Every time you choose to learn instead of show off, you move closer to the level where your excellence becomes undeniable. Mastery requires repetition. You cannot master anything by dabbling in it once in a while. Dabbling creates dabblers. Consistency creates masters. Think about a musician who practices scales for hours every day, a craftsman who repeats the same motion until it becomes muscle memory, an athlete who trains the same drill until it becomes instinct. That kind of repetition looks boring to the crowd, but it creates brilliance when it counts. People who seek applause want variety. People who seek mastery want repetition. They understand that monotony is the soil where greatness grows. Mastery also demands sacrifice. You cannot give your best energy to everything and expect to excel in one thing. You have to decide what you're willing to give up to be great. Maybe it's entertainment. Maybe it's comfort. Maybe it's popularity itself. The crowd wants your attention, but mastery requires your focus. Every hour you spend pleasing people is an hour stolen from progress. Masters trade applause for advancement. They're willing to look a novice now in order to be unforgettable later. Another layer of mastery is precision. Amateurs aim for good enough. Masters aim for flawless. They pay attention to details others overlook. They obsess over the little things, knowing that excellence lies in the margins. A chef perfects the seasoning that others ignore. A speaker sharpens the pauses between words. A writer refines every sentence until it sings. To the untrained eye, it looks unnecessary. To the master, it's everything. Applause can come from surface level effort, but mastery only comes from deep level detail. Focusing on mastery builds confidence. When you know you've put in the work, when you know your skill is real, you stop depending on applause to validate you. Confidence born from applause disappears when the noise fades. Confidence born from mastery stays with you wherever you go. It's the unshakable belief that comes from preparation, from proof, from practice. You don't need to be told you're great. You already know you've earned it. Mastery creates opportunities. Applause never will. People might clap for you once and move on, but when you're excellent, doors open. Excellence has its own voice, its own reputation. Mastery gets whispered in rooms you've never entered. Mastery makes people talk about you when you're not there. Recognition is a moment. Mastery is a movement. Recognition gives you a stage once. Mastery keeps you on stages for a lifetime, and mastery leaves a legacy. Nobody remembers who was popular for a season, but they remember who changed the standard forever. Think about the inventors, the artists, the leaders who became legends. It wasn't applause that cemented their names in history. It was mastery. They gave their craft everything, and as a result, the world gave them eternal respect. If you focus on applause, you'll fade with the crowd's attention. If you focus on mastery, you'll stand above it for generations. Multiply value, not effort. That's the distinction that separates those who stay busy from those who build greatness. Most people think success comes from working harder, longer, faster. They pride themselves on exhaustion, on how many hours they spent grinding, on how much sweat they poured out. But the truth is, working harder without multiplying value only makes you tired, not great. The best don't just work, they create leverage. They look for ways to make one action produce multiple results. One seed create an entire harvest. One effort echo far beyond the moment it was done. The trap of effort without value is business. You can spend all day moving and still accomplish nothing. Activity does not equal productivity. People wear business like a badge of honor, but business only proves that you're moving, not that you're advancing. Those who multiply value understand the difference between motion and momentum. Motion is running in circles. Momentum is moving forward with impact. It's not about how much you do, but how much your actions return. Value is created when your effort benefits more than just you. If you work an hour and that hour only feeds your own survival, that's effort. If you work an hour and that hour produces benefits for 10, 100, or 1,000 people, that's value. The greatest leaders, thinkers, and creators aren't remembered for how tired they were. They're remembered for the results their work multiplied in others. They built systems, solutions, and ideas that reach beyond their personal capacity. That's what separates the overwhelmed worker from the unstoppable builder. Multiplying value requires strategy. You have to step back from the grind long enough to ask, How can this action do more than one thing? How can I structure my time, my energy, and my resources so that every move multiplies? Instead of repeating tasks that drain you, you create processes that free you. Instead of solving problems once, you build solutions that solve them forever. Instead of helping one person at a time, you design methods that can help thousands at once. Multiplication is not about doing more. It's about thinking differently. Multiplying value requires creativity. When everyone else sees only one way, you ask, what if this system could be automated? What if this product could serve more people? What if this skill could be taught to others? Creativity takes the lid off limitation and allows you to see possibilities others ignore. The average person only sees tasks. The multiplier sees opportunities. The average person repeats yesterday's routine. The multiplier invents tomorrow's system. It also requires the courage to stop glorifying struggle. Some people are so attached to the identity of hard worker that they refuse to evolve. They equate sweat with success and think that if they're not tired, they're not doing enough. But greatness isn't about wearing yourself out. It's about wearing the world down with the impact of your contribution. Multipliers don't fear efficiency. They don't fear being smart. They understand that wisdom is not about doing more of what drains you, but finding ways to make what you do count more. Multiplying value requires teaching. You cannot dominate if everything depends on you alone. The best multiply themselves through others. They teach, they train, they delegate, they empower. By creating more capable people around them, they multiply their reach. Every mentor creates multipliers. Every leader who lifts others creates a ripple effect that reaches far beyond their personal capacity. Effort alone can only reach as far as your two hands. Value multiplies when your knowledge and skills are transferred into the hands of others. Multiplying value requires systems. A system is simply a way of making something predictable, repeatable, and scalable. Without systems, you'll always be stuck solving the same problems over and over. With systems, you solve it once and let the solution work for you again and again. A system is a form of multiplication. It allows your effort today to keep paying you tomorrow. That's why those who build systems achieve freedom, while those who only work harder remain trapped. Multiplying value requires vision. You cannot multiply what you cannot see. If your vision is small, your multiplication will be small. If your vision is great, your multiplication will be great. Vision expands capacity because it forces you to think about how to reach more, serve more, and build more than you thought possible. The best don't just see the next step. They see the ripple, the chain reaction, the long-term impact. And because they see it, they create it. Multiplying value requires discipline. It's tempting to keep chasing effort because effort feels immediate. You sweat today, you feel like you accomplished something today. Multiplication feels slower because it requires planning, patience, and delayed gratification. But once it compounds, it far outpaces effort. A tree takes time to grow, but once it's rooted, it produces fruit year after year without the planter working harder. Effort clears the field, multiplication plants the orchard. The discipline to build multiplication instead of chasing applause for effort is what makes the best rise above the rest. Train relentlessly. That's the dividing line between those who flirt with greatness and those who marry it. Talent might get you noticed for a moment, but training keeps you relevant for a lifetime. Too many people rely on natural ability, thinking that being gifted exempts them from discipline. But raw talent without relentless training is like an uncut diamond, potential value with no brilliance. The shine comes from pressure, polishing, grinding, and shaping. That's what training does. It takes the raw material of who you are and turns it into mastery that cannot be ignored. Training relentlessly means practice when nobody's watching. Most people perform for the crowd, but champions train in silence. They're not moved by applause, they're moved by improvement. They understand that the greatest battles are won before the spotlight ever turns on. Every flawless performance you see in public is built on hours of unseen practice. Every moment of mastery on stage or on the field is rooted in sweat that nobody clapped for. The secret to excellence isn't what you do when the lights are on, it's what you do when nobody cares. Training relentlessly means repetition without boredom. The average person gets tired of doing the same drill, the same motion, the same exercise. They crave novelty, but masters crave progress, and progress is born in repetition. The basketball player who practices free throws until they're automatic, the musician who plays scales until their fingers move by instinct, the speaker who delivers lines until they roll out with precision. These are the ones who rise. Repetition transforms skill into second nature. What looks boring to the undisciplined becomes the foundation of brilliance for the relentless. Training relentlessly means embracing failure as feedback. Every attempt that doesn't work isn't proof that you're unqualified. It's proof that you're still in the process. Most people hate failure because it bruises their ego. Masters embrace failure because it sharpens their skill. They see each mistake as a coach, pointing out what needs refinement. They don't run from errors, they extract lessons from them. With each setback, they adjust, recalibrate, and grow stronger. The relentless understand that failure isn't final, it's fertilizer. Training relentlessly means controlling the fundamentals. Too many people want to skip the basics and rush to the advanced, but mastery isn't built on skipping steps. It's built on perfecting them. The fundamentals are the foundation, and without a foundation, the building collapses. The relentless don't get bored with basics. They know that the higher you want to go, the deeper your foundation must be. They revisit the fundamentals again and again, not because they're weak, but because they're wise. Training relentlessly means making preparation your priority. Most people want to show up and perform without paying the price of preparation. They want the harvest without planting the seed. But champions know that preparation is the real competition. If you're prepared, performance becomes effortless. If you're unprepared, performance becomes embarrassing. The relentless spend more time sharpening their axe than swinging it because they know a sharp blade cuts deeper with less effort. Training relentlessly means discipline over desire. Desire gets you started, but discipline keeps you consistent. There will be days when motivation disappears, when passion feels distant, when energy runs low. The average waits for feelings to return before they act. The relentless train anyway. They know that discipline is stronger than desire. Training isn't about how you feel, it's about what you've committed to. They train when they're tired, when they're bored, when they're uninspired, because they understand that consistency compounds. Training relentlessly means competing against yourself. The true competitor isn't the person across from you. It's the person you were yesterday. Masters don't measure themselves against the average. They measure themselves against their own potential. They ask, did I grow? Did I improve? Did I push farther than before? This internal competition keeps them sharp, hungry, and advancing. It prevents complacency and fuels progress. Training relentlessly means preparing for the unseen. Life will throw challenges you didn't expect, opportunities you didn't plan for, doors you didn't see coming. The relentless don't wait for those moments to scramble. They prepare in advance so that when opportunity arrives, they're ready. They don't train for what's easy, they train for what's coming. Preparation gives them confidence in uncertainty, strength under pressure, and composure in chaos. Training relentlessly means never arriving. The moment you think you've arrived, you begin to decline. Masters never graduate from growth. They stay in the gym, in the lab, in the books, in the practice room. They never confuse success with completion. Every level achieved is just another platform for deeper refinement. They train not because they're weak, but because they know greatness has no ceiling. The relentless mindset says, as long as I'm breathing, I'm building. As long as I'm alive, I'm learning. As long as there's breath in my body, there's still more to master. Refuse average associations. Who you surround yourself with will either pull you higher or drag you lower. And most people underestimate the gravity of their environment. Average people keep average company because it feels safe. It feels comfortable to be around those who don't challenge you, who don't question you, who don't demand more of you. But comfort zones create cages, and cages never produce champions. If you want to rise to the best version of yourself, you cannot afford to walk hand in hand with mediocrity. Every conversation is planting a seed. When you talk with people who complain, you start to complain. When you spend time with people who gossip, you begin to gossip. When you sit with people who settle, settling becomes normal to you. The atmosphere you allow around you becomes the atmosphere within you. That's why refusing average associations isn't arrogance. It's survival. You cannot breathe the ambition in an environment filled with excuses. You cannot think big when you're surrounded by people committed to smallness. Refusing average associations doesn't mean you hate people. It means you love your destiny too much to compromise it. The wrong associations dilute your focus. They distract your discipline. They normalize behaviors that keep you stagnant. If everyone around you thinks good enough is acceptable, sooner or later you'll lower your standard too. Excellence feels excessive to those who have settled for average, and if you listen long enough, their voice will start to sound reasonable. The right associations sharpen you. Iron sharpens iron, but rust dulls the blade. People of vision push you when you want to stop. They remind you of your standard when you feel like lowering it. They see potential in you that average eyes can't recognize. They don't celebrate you staying the same. They demand you to grow. When you connect with people like that, your thinking expands, your energy rises, and your hunger multiplies. Refusing average associations requires courage. It's not easy to step away from circles you've always known. Sometimes it means losing friendships you've had for years. Sometimes it means family won't understand the path you're choosing. Sometimes it means walking alone for a season. But solitude with your purpose is better than company with mediocrity. The fear of loneliness keeps many chained to the wrong people, but the moment you let go, space opens for the right ones to enter. Average associations often operate with small talk, but great associations operate with big vision. When you're in the right circle, conversations don't drain you, they charge you. They're about ideas, strategies, and possibilities, not complaints, drama, and limitations. The conversations you entertain are either expanding your mind or shrinking it. That's why you can measure your future by the words you're surrounded with today. Refusing average associations also means protecting your energy. Everyone brings an atmosphere with them. Some people walk into a room and it feels heavier. Others enter and the room lights up. If you're constantly carrying the weight of draining people, your strength is wasted on survival instead of growth. Protecting your energy means saying no to people who deplete you so you can say yes to people who inspire you. Your energy is your currency and you cannot spend it on what does not multiply you. The greatest achievers are intentional about association. They build networks with people who are ahead of them, who challenge them, who stretch them. They aren't intimidated by someone else's success because they know proximity to greatness produces greatness. Being around people doing more than you forces you to realize what's possible. It makes excuses harder to believe because proof of excellence is standing right in front of you. Refusing average associations is also about accountability. Left alone, it's easy to make excuses, to procrastinate, to lower your standard. But in the right circle, mediocrity is not tolerated. You can't stay small when everyone around you is growing. You can't stay stagnant when everyone around you is moving. Accountability may feel uncomfortable, but it is the friction that creates fire. Without it, you'll drift into average without even realizing it. Average associations are easy to find, but extraordinary ones must be sought. You won't stumble into greatness by accident. You have to position yourself intentionally. That might mean investing in mentorship. That might mean joining communities that stretch you. That might mean traveling to be in rooms where the conversations are different. The cost of seeking better associations may feel high, but the cost of staying with average is much higher. At the core, refusing average associations is about identity. You either become a reflection of the people you spend time with, or they become a reflection of you. If you walk with the wise, wisdom rubs off. If you walk with the foolish, foolishness rubs off. You cannot escape the law of association. It will either drag you down or lift you higher. Your destiny deserves the company of greatness, not the comfort of average.